It's now my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Graeme Newton. Now, Graeme has always had an interest in infrastructure. In fact, his dad was a builder who was a big influence on him. And his early career involved working in economic development in Brisbane City Council. His degree qualifications are all from QUT. In fact, Graeme received the Engineering Alumni Award here in 2012. Eventually, he became Coordinator General for Infrastructure, which, as you know, is a key role for state government. He's very passionate about using infrastructure as an enabler of economic development and job creation. He's currently the CEO of the Cross River Rail Delivery Authority here in Brisbane. Now, this project is all about infrastructure delivery and how we use it to create a step change in the city. Graeme believes that Brisbane is at the point where it has to move from adolescent to adult. He's in a position to play a key role in helping us move on from the era when the car was the traditional form of transport to harness the capacity of the broader southeast Queensland region and the knowledge economy. To achieve this, Graeme acknowledges that we need to get good alignment between the city and the state. Today, Graeme will present his team's view of what is happening to Brisbane and how Cross River Rail fits into that and connects it all together, particularly from a multi-precinct perspective. He'll also share with us the model that Cross River Rail is using to look at the anatomy of the city, both above the surface and below the ground. Now, Graeme will join us on stage shortly, but first he has a short video that he'd like us to watch. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming along and the breakfast like this. Isn't it a wonderful room? It's fantastic. And the best part I like about this room is if you look that way, you can see where Albert Street Station's going to be. If you look that way, you can see where Woolloongabba, and if you look a little bit further, you can see. No, it's a great spot, and I've always enjoyed the affiliation with QUT. So thanks, Danielle, for having me along, and David and crew. I'd like to acknowledge my other speakers, particularly the Deputy Mayor. We often find ourselves doing complimentary speeches, and I guess probably the key thing to mention in that regard is both of our projects are extremely complementary to each other, not only in a transport sense, but it's also in a city enabling sense. So I'm going to take you on a bit of a magic carpet ride around our city, but before I do that, I need to sort of get through the sort of front end, the why question. When I first got involved in this role about a bit over a year ago, I sort of came in. It was very heavily focused around 10 kilometres of track and 6 kilometres of tunnel, and it really didn't answer, well, why are we doing this? What's it all about? So if my slides come up. Very simply, southeast Queensland is growing. Population is out there and growth because of affordability and so forth, with some elements of infill, and the jobs are in here in the core. So people need to get from there to here. And the bottom line is we're seeing that growth, we're seeing the mobility, and people are starting to move to public transport. We need to make it easier and more seamless for them, and that's what this unblocking the bottleneck in the core of it, turn up and go, and putting more trains on the network so that we can get people there. And illustrative is really the fact that we've seen a 5.9% growth in public transport use or train use from the Gold Coast to Brisbane since 2015. So that is a sector that is absolutely on growth, and then that's the one that is pointing directly towards the Cross River Rail Tunnel. I was down in the Gold Coast recently, and they actually look at this and saying, this is fantastic. It means we can get to main venues, we can get to main opportunities, and that's really what I want to talk about. I don't want to talk necessarily about the project itself. That's been around for a bit, but what you can see there is essentially it's an augmentation of the existing network. The existing network has a choke point in the middle of the core. To get across Merivale Bridge, every train has to go through Central and Roma Street Station, and that creates a choke point. You've got a max capacity across Merivale Bridge of 24 trains per hour at peak. So what we're doing is putting another connection through, doubling the capacity, which then means that you can put more rolling stock on, which then when you turn up to the railway station, you don't have to check a timetable, the train will be there within 7 minutes. Okay, that's what it's all about, and that will make people think, well, why would I want to spend 91 minutes in a car when I could spend 66 minutes in a train? Okay, and that's the notion. You can sit in the train, laptop, Facebook, check on your results at QUT or whatever, but you can do whatever, study. There's things that you can do rather than sit in traffic, stop, start. And that's what this is all about, is uncorking that bottleneck so that you can get more of the trains through. But if we're going to do it, what we want to do is do it in a way where the stations are at places that they're needed, okay? And we're providing stations that will provide that step change, what was referred to, that step change that brings the city out of adolescence and into adulthood. So we are behaving like that new world city that we hear the Lord Mayor talk about. So this is the magic carpet ride. Now, this is the first time I've run this in a public forum, so you're not allowed to go around it. No, you can go around and talk about it, but there's a bit of an experiment, but what it's all about is to just sort of show you, give you a feel for what we're looking at, how we're looking at doing it, and what it's all about. So this is at the Boggo Road end, so essentially looking out that way, and what we're looking at is putting a railway station smack bang in the middle of that precinct there. This is a bit of a visualisation of an artist's impression of what potentially can happen there. But what we're looking at is the Eco-Sciences precinct connecting to the PA hospital. The development around that PA hospital is of massive potential. That's where the TRI is, the Transition Research Institute is. QUT's got a presence over there as well as UQ. It's short distance to UQ across the Green Bridge. So it starts to create this sort of focus of research. It's already there. The CSIRO are already present there. The universities are already present there. The hospital's already doing research there. But what's missing is a good connection and a good synergy between the eco-sciences component and the health component. So we're working on that as a precinct. I won't steal the thunder of some announcements that are going to come soon, but watch that space. But what we're also looking at is how do we get that physical connection, and how do we use the development of Cross River Rail by creating a new station to stimulate that and provide a focus which then allows that development to happen. Next on the magic carpet ride, 3 minutes later you arrive at Woolloongabba. So you would have seen that we've demolished the GoPrint site. We've just announced the demolition of the Land Centre. I've never had such popular media about demolition. It's just been fantastic. Whenever we talk about demolition, we're demolishing the transit centre, everybody loves it, thinks it's fantastic. So at Woolloongabba, what we're looking at is, well, how do we change the front door of the Gabba itself? How do we make it a place that's a venue that people go to, like Adelaide Oval, like the MCG, like the SCG? How do you make it a place that has its own vibe, not only during game days, but also out of game days? How do you have that as like what's it called, the square in Melbourne, Federation Square, sorry, mental block. Federation Square in Melbourne, where you've got this sort of vibe where people go there. You might start marathons there, you might have markets there, you might do things but it's part of the forecourt. And then when you go to the event, you cross this bridge. You don't get run over by buses like you do today. You don't have to sort of watch out for the police. You haven't got people in orange jackets yelling at you. You have this pleasant experience where you get off the train after 3 minutes ride. You then walk up this alley, drop in for a beer, then you go and watch the first bowl. Last year I went to the cricket and I had people in there and I'm stuck in traffic and they're sending me photos of the first over every bowl. And it's going, Okay. So that's what we're talking about at the Gabba. Next on the Magic Carpet Ride takes you to Albert Street. Now what's important about Albert Street is the fact that it's in the middle of the city. And when I say in the middle of the city, I mean literally in the middle of the city. At the moment, Roma Street and Central Station are on the edge of the city. So anybody, particularly coming to QUT, I mean, I wore out quite a lot of shoes coming here. You've got to walk 15 minutes to get down here. The Albert Street station is geographically central. That's why it's in Albert Street. There was conjecture about, I think, under the Bat Tunnel, putting it on George Street and so forth. But really, Albert Street is the best place because it's basically 5 to 10 minutes walk to pretty much anywhere in the city. Queen's Wharf is 1 block away. QUT is 1.5 sort of blocks away. The 1 William Street, Dex's proposal, all of that is in close proximity. Our early modelling said around about 67,000 people per day would use the Albert Street station. Okay, more later modelling is telling us it's more like 100,000 people. Okay, it will be the station. Okay, and so what we're looking at Albert Street is saying, well, how do we do it as an iconic? It's at that junction between Mary Street and Albert Street, and that'll become an iconic locale for the city itself. Ties in with the city's green spine and ties in with the alignment with Mary Street. So we're really trying to say, how do we get alignment with what the city is trying to achieve and what this project can do to enable what the city wants to achieve? So you can sort of see those walk distances and those connections there. And it's really, it just puts it in that beating heart of the core of the city. Next is Roma Street. Roma Street's actually really one of the most exciting ones. I mean, Roma Street has been an area that's been, it's sort of struggled to get its own momentum. There's a lot of potential there, but it really hasn't quite kicked off. And as I said, everybody loves the idea of demolishing that transit centre. And it's a shame, the building could be only 40 years old and be seen as the biggest eyesore in the city. But happy to say, we'll be getting rid of it. Okay, so, but you would have heard about Brisbane Live. So we're in the middle of the business case process for that, and that's going through, and we're looking at it. And essentially, Brisbane Live will be a replacement for Boondall, which is another one where everybody goes, oh, thank God for that, let's get rid of Boondall. No, so we're looking at how do we create a facility in the middle of the city, because this is where the trend is for these type of entertainment venues. They are in the middle of the city. They're accessible by public transport. You don't have to drive your car there. Lots of activation around them, even when the events aren't on. And so we're learning from those experiences. And Perth Arena is a really good example, but there's LA Live, there's a whole bunch of others where we're learning those lessons about saying, look, put these things in the right place. But I will say it's not a simple solution. Decking over rail is never simple. It's expensive and it's tricky, but at the end of the day, it's one of those things that will be worthwhile. And the development over the transit centre where that is, they're talking about a new hotel, if not 2 hotels, multiple office buildings there as well, creating a front door to Roma Street. Roma Street will become the grand central of Brisbane City. Okay, it will be where the long distance rail, the interstate rail, the XPT, the buses, the coaches, the Brisbane Metro, Cross River Rail, the surface rail, they all come to Roma Street. It will be Brisbane's grand central. So we want to have an entrance that actually befits that type of thing, and it becomes that gateway. So when people arrive from overseas and they get on the air train from the airport and they arrive at Roma Street, they go, wow, what a wonderful city. I think I'll stay here for a week. Okay. So that's all I wanted to talk about. I only had my 10 minutes allotted, but I hope you enjoyed the Magic Carpet Ride, and that gives you a bit of a tease for where we're going to, what it's all about, and just watch this space because those announcements will be coming through. Thank you.